Oh my god, look at how stubby it is. It's like a stubby little plane. Oh, it's so cute.
Now American 95, 10 miles out on the ILS.
American 95, Kennedy Tower, falling over 319 ahead, 1050.
Hello everybody, I'm DerTebbers. Welcome aboard, welcome to Seattle, Washington again this month because, well, aboard our Noorduyn Norseman. I'm here because, well, I know for sure this is a airport I can land this plane at. Yep, it's a beautiful little float plane. Let's open it up before we take off. Is anything open? Ah, yes, our front door is open. Very, very nice. Very nice. Let's close those. All right. Let's, do we have flaps? We do have flaps indeed. Sound like they're still going down, too. All right, cool. Let's run up our one Pratt Whitney R1340AN1 9-cylinder air-cooled radial piston, 600 horsepower. Sounded like it has a second stage there. Alright, well, that's about all we got there. Alright, it looks like it's almost up on plane there. Oh, yep, there we went. And away we go. The Norseman is a Canadian single-engine bush plane designed to operate from unimproved surfaces. Distinctive stubby landing gear protrusions. Let me get my mouse. See these right here? Whoop, whoop, whoop. That's landing gear protrusions. Make it easily recognizable. I would also presume that because it's a stubby plane, it would also be recognizable, but hey, whatever. Let's put those flaps up. There we go. Originally introduced in 1935, the Norseman remained in production for almost 25 years with over 900 produced. A number of examples remain in commercial and private use. Norseman aircraft are known to have been registered and/or operated in 68 countries throughout the world and have also been flown and based in the Arctic and Antarctic regions. Now, Noorduyn got experience working on many groundbreaking designs at Fokker, Bellinken, and Pitclim-Sieva, and decided, you know what, it's 1934, I'm going to make my own plane. Along with his colleague Walter Clayton, they created their original company, Noorduyn Aircraft Limited, in early 1933 at Montreal, while a successor company bears the name Noorduyn Aviation, established in 1935. His vision of an ideal bush plane began with a high-wing monoplane. Look at that, we have a high-wing monoplane. How about that? To facilitate loading and unloading the passengers and cargo at seaplane docks and airports. Makes sense to me. Next, a Canadian operator utilizing existing talents, equipment, and facilities should be able to make money using it. Hey, that's a really good thing if you're trying to sell this to a bush pilot, don't you think? I think so. And last, it should be all around superior to anything already in use. That's a pretty high standard to set for yourself, but a pretty successful design. In fact, when you look at it, you can see vestiges of more modern aircraft. They sort of took the same look, the same shape, the same concept. So he was successful. People copied him. That's usually the first form of flattery. From the outset, he designed this aircraft to have interchangeable wheels, skis, or twin float landing gear. So from the beginning, this aircraft was designed to be able to switch out what it's flying with. In fact, unlike most aircraft designs, this aircraft is first fitted with floats, then skis, and finally fixed landing gear. What does that mean? It means the aircraft was optimized to run floats. If you take a Piper Super Cub and you put floats on it, well, it was originally designed to fly with wheels. So it might not be best optimized to fly with those floats. When you build your aircraft to say, well, it's got to fly with floats, so I need to do these things. And then skis, which are not exactly the most aerodynamic things. And finally wheels, it's probably an advantage. The final design looked like Noorduyn's earlier Fokker design. A high-wing braced monoplane, all steel. Ooh, we almost stalled there. Where were we? I was about to die. All welded steel tubing fuselage. Attached wood stringers carried a fabric skin Its wing was all fabric covered wood except for steel tubing for the flaps and ailerons. The divided landing gear were fitted to fuselage stubs. Legs were secured with 2 bolts each to allow that alternate arrangement. That's pretty impressive when you consider that. We're going to take 2 bolts. Yeah. The tail wheel could be fitted. The tail wheel strut could be fitted with your tail wheel or your skid, or not if you're flying a float plane, because you don't need one. Aha. Almost immediately, the Norseman proved itself to be a rugged, reliable workhorse with steady sails. Until 1940, Noorduyn and Company sold only 17, primarily to commercial operators in Canada's north and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And you're thinking, well, that's not very many, Dare. Yeah, but with the outbreak of war in Europe, demand for a utility transport led to major military orders. The Royal Canadian Air Force and the United States Army Air Force became the 2 largest operators. Yeah, that's pretty good when your aircraft is good enough that they're like, oh, yeah, we need that. United States Army Air Force Colonel Brent Balchin had been involved in establishing a staging route across Greenland to facilitate the ferrying of aircraft from North America to Europe. He required a bush plane, logically, that was rugged enough to survive in the harsh conditions of the Arctic. After evaluating many different designs, he evaluated 6 Norsemen that were diverted from a previous Royal Canadian Air Force order in late 1941. And he decided, I don't want an American design, I want the Norseman. Now, after the U.S. entry into the Second World War, several orders were made for Norseman aircraft. Throughout the Second World War, this aircraft was used in North America, primarily Alaska, as well as other theaters of the war, including Europe, for transport. It's a small plane, but it's a highly capable plane. Then the post-war came. Canadian Car and Foundry of Fort William, Ontario acquired the rights to the Norseman design, produced a version known as the Norseman 5, and in order to exploit the market further, the Car factory designed and built the Norseman Mark 7. The version had a bigger engine, a new all-metal wing, and greater cargo capacity, but it never went into production. With large Korean War commitments at the time, the company put it into temporary storage, and then there was a hangar fire, and the plane was destroyed in September 1951. It would have been an amazing aircraft. To think about that. Bigger engine, all metal. It would have probably been something that you would see still flying around today. In 1953, Noorduyn headed a group of investors who bought back the jigs and equipment from Canadian Car and Foundry and started a new company, Noorduyn Norseman Aircraft Limited. The company continued to provide support for operating Norseman aircraft and built 3 new Mark 5s before selling its assets in 1982 to Norco Associates, who provide support service only. Sadly, the plane is no longer in production. Aww. Now, you can, if you are interested, the town of Red Lake, Ontario, is known as the jumping off point for remote communities in northwestern Ontario, promotes itself as the Norseman capital of the world. Each summer in July, the Norseman Float Plane Festival brings Norseman aircraft to Red Lake as a centerpiece of a community-based weekend festival. I don't know about you, but I've actually been looking at how to get to Red Lake, because that would be really, really, really fun. Don't think I'd make it this year, but hey, you never know. If you can make it, if you live in Canada and you're like, oh man, I just drive up the road and I'm in Red Lake, hey, totally go. Take video. Be cool. We have a crew of 1, a capacity of 10, a cruising speed of 150 miles an hour. That's 241 kilometers an hour at 10,000 feet. Our stall speed, it's only 68 miles an hour. It's 109 kilometers an hour. That's a pretty low stall speed. Not as low as some, but pretty darn low. Your range, 932 miles or 1,500 kilometers if you're flying around at 10,000 feet at proper speeds. It's a nice looking aircraft, isn't it? Now, outside it's beautiful. Inside, not so much. So I've got a few problems. There's this gap right there that needs to be cleaned up. I think the interior could be cleaned up a little bit more to really make it pop, and it would be much nicer, but I mean, it's not terrible. It's not the end of the world terrible. It's pretty bad. Shift 1, there's our gauges. So see these rivets right here? I'd like to see them here. It would make it better. See? Yeah, that would make things so much better. 2, there's our GPS. 3, there's our radio and autopilot. And that's it. That's all she wrote right there. That is the Noorduyn Norseman. The link is in the description as always. An interesting little aircraft if you're looking for a float plane bush flyer. Also would be good if you're doing FS passengers or FS cargo because, well, one, it's a float plane, so it might be a little bit difficult, but you get 10 people in there. Pretty nice, I think. I don't know. You might not think so. The link is in the description as always. I'm DerTebbers. This has been your Flight Simulator X Plane Spotlight, the Noorduyn Norseman. I know, I've mispronounced the name the entire time. I'm sorry. I'm flying away now. Bye.
Level 1283, Kennedy Tower, greetings. Falling heavy, Boeing 767 touching down. Caution wake turbulence from 05012, number 2, 4 right, set left.
Going in 4 right, 1283, copy all.
8 Lima Bravo, traffic just north of the airport, opposite direction along the track routing. A helicopter and under defeat, yes, you in sight.